Okay, we're continuing with the axial skeleton, and we are now at the vertebra. So on vertebra, we often have the same features found on the vertebra. Now, there are some exceptions. Some vertebra have particular features in the lumbar area than, let's say, the cervical area. But we are going to be looking at generally the features that are consistently found on all the vertebrae in all the areas, cervical, thoracic, or lumbar. There will be a few exceptions, and I'll try to draw your attention to that. Okay. Bony areas or bone areas. Well, the large part of the vertebra is called the body. It's to the anterior aspect and bears most of the weight and articulates with the intervertebral discs above and below. We have foramen, as we know. They are passageways. We have the vertebral foramen, which is the passageway for the spinal cord, and transverse foramen, passageway for blood vessels and nerves, found in cervical vertebrae only. We have processes, muscle or ligament attachments. We have a transverse process, which are lateral projections, which act as muscle attachments, and spinous processes that project posteriorly and also act as a muscle attachment. We have intervertebral discs. They are composed of the tissue fibrocartilage, and they act as pads between the vertebral bodies of each vertebra in this stack. So they act as an articulation, and it allows for movement and acts as a shock absorber. So here we see a picture of a vertebra. The large bony portion is the body. The hole in the center is the vertebral foramen. We have the two lateral projections of bones called the transverse process, and the posterior projection of bone, spinous process. The processes function as muscle attachments. The body functions in articulation, and the vertebral foramen a passageway, in this case for the spinal cord. So most of the vertebrae that we'll be looking at will have these same structures to it. In the cervical vertebra, we'll have a couple exceptions. So the divisions of the vertebral column are the cervical division, includes C1 to C7. That's the neck region. Thoracic region, T1 to T12. The lumbar region, L1 to L5. We have the sacrum at the base, which is composed of 5 fused vertebrae, and the coccyx, 4 fused vertebrae. When we name the vertebra, we start from superior to inferior. So here, looking at the diagram of the spine, we start at the top of the stack. That would be the first cervical vertebra, or C1. Then we have the second, third, fourth, fifth, through 7. And then in the thoracic area, we resume with T1, T2, T3, T4, all the way through T12. So we number from superior to inferior. 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral vertebra that fuse together, and 4 coccygeal vertebra that fuse together. All right, cervical vertebra. They're the smallest. The vertebrae are smallest at the top of the stack and largest to the bottom of the stack. Even though their vertebral body is small, their vertebral foramen, where the passage of the spinal cord, is actually the largest. Cervical vertebrae are the only vertebra to have transverse foramen in their transverse processes. The first cervical vertebra and the second cervical vertebra are very unusually shaped, and they have their own names. C1 is also known as Atlas, because Atlas holds up the world in Greek mythology. It articulates above it with the occipital condyles of the skull, or occipital bone. And below it, it articulates with C2, which is known as axis. See, Atlas bone kind of looks like a ring. It doesn't have a substantial body at all, and nor does it have a spinous process. They're actually called arches, an anterior and a posterior arch. But it does have transverse foramen with transverse process, in transverse processes, just like axis. So axis is C2. It has a unique feature that extends superiorly from the body called the dens or odontoid process. This little extension of bone allows the atlas, which is like a ring, to pivot around. It has transverse processes with transverse foramen, vertebral foramen, and spinous process. So here is our cervical vertebra. C1 is on top, also known as atlas. You see how it's kind of a ring of bone. C2 axis is below that, and to the anterior aspect, there is your dens. And now you can see how atlas pivots around it. And then you have the other vertebra below it. All the remaining vertebra, are very typical looking cervical vertebra with a body, transverse process, transverse foramen, spinous process, vertebral foramen. Right, thoracic vertebra have long spinous processes, which helps you identify and distinguish a thoracic vertebra from a lumbar vertebra. They articulate with ribs, and they have restricted movement as a result of articulating with the ribs and then ultimately the ribs to the sternum. So here we're looking at some thoracic vertebra. Their spinous process is very long. To me, a thoracic vertebra looks like a giraffe or an elephant. Then we have the lumbar vertebra. They're the largest and strongest in the body because they must support everything above it. All the processes, transverse process and spinous processes, are short and chunky looking. And it is in this region below L2 where we can spinal tap, essentially administer a needle and remove fluid from the subarachnoid space. So here we're looking at pictures of lumbar vertebra. They're much larger and rather substantial looking. And to me, they look like a moose. Okay, the sacrum is a triangular shaped bone formed from 5 vertebrae that fuse together. They articulate with each side of your hip called the os coxa to form the sacroiliac joint, and it helps strengthen and stabilize the pelvis. The coccyx, also called the tailbone, is a triangular bone formed by 3 to 5 vertebrae. So here we have a picture. We're looking, from anterior to posterior, the sacrum and the coccyx below. The hyoid bone does not articulate with any other bone. It's held in place by ligaments and muscles located between the mandible and the larynx, so anterior to the cervical spine. And it functions as an attachment site for tongue and neck muscles. And here we can see the shape of the hyoid bone and where it's located. The sternum is a flat bone that articulates directly and indirectly with costal cartilages 1 through 10 ribs. So what does that mean? It means we have 12 pairs of ribs. We also have 12 thoracic vertebrae. And they are paired, starting at the top and numbering inferiorly. We have ribs 1, 2, 3, 4 through 12. The first 10 attach either directly or indirectly to costal cartilages, which attach ribs to the sternum. The bottom 2 pair are free-floating ribs. So I'll show you, I believe there is a picture. Yes, there is subsequently a picture. Okay, so when we identify, well, we'll talk about the ribs in just a minute, but let's kind of go back to the sternum here. We have 3 regions. The manubrium, which functions in articulation. It articulates with the clavicles and the first 2 pairs of ribs. Then we have the largest portion, which is the body. And it too functions to articulate with the costal cartilages of the remaining ribs. It's also part or half of rib 2 all the way through rib 7. And then the most inferior aspect, the xiphoid process, functions as a muscle attachment, and that muscle is rectus abdominis. Right, the ribs. As I stated before, we have 12 pairs of ribs. When we count from superior to inferior, the first 7 pairs of ribs are considered true ribs, quote unquote. They connect directly with costal cartilage to the sternum. Now, the next 5 ribs, 8 through 10, or actually, let me back up. Ribs 8 through 12 are called false ribs. And they're called false ribs because they do not directly attach to the sternum. Now, even though ribs 8, 9, and 10 connect to some costal cartilage, they don't independently attach to the sternum. They kind of piggyback on rib 7 and attach to the sternum. And then the bottom 2 ribs are free floating. So here we're numbering and identifying the true ribs versus the false ribs, and your floating ribs at the bottom. Right, and that's the end of the axial skeleton.